From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
A traffic surprise for people near Chicago. How an officer managed to get this donkey to safety.
There's a donkey in the middle of I-90.
Farmers forced to make some tough decisions before they put seed in the ground.
With the bean market the way it is and the uncertainty on the horizon, I can't take that chance.
As soybeans take a nosedive on the market.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Soybeans suffering losses again on Tuesday as concern grows about China and the massive outbreak of African swine fever in that country. Traders now concerned that Chinese soybean imports could be lower than expected this year. China's agriculture ministry saying more than 80% of hog farmers aren't planning to restock their herds. That's according to Bloomberg. An official at the China Vegetable Oil Industry Association projecting China's soy imports could drop to 85 million tons. That's down from USDA's forecast of 88 million tons for the current marketing year. And there are other pressures on soybeans right now, too.
There's some worries that the farmers may plant more beans than the USDA said in the March report coming that happened, at the end of the month.
Bloomberg talked to a Chinese ag researcher. He says if China's hog supplies drop by 10%, the country would need to import at least 2 million tons of pork to fill the gap. And that's where other countries, including the U.S. and Brazil, are hoping to step in. Brazil's agriculture minister saying soy exports to China will decline this year as the country cuts demand for animal feed. But Teresa Cristina Diaz says potential growth in meat exports would offset it. Diaz will travel to China next month on an official visit. She says she will defend Brazilian soy exports with Chinese officials. And business groups are warning President Trump against keeping tariffs on Chinese goods, even if there is a trade deal with China. Americans for Free Trade sent a letter to President Trump this week. In the letter, business and ag companies called for the, quote, full and immediate removal of all added tariffs on Chinese goods in a deal. Bloomberg has reported China is considering a request from the U.S. to shift some tariffs on key ag products to other products. President Trump has vowed to maintain some of the tariffs in order to maintain enforcement of any deal. Ag groups also sent another trade policy letter, this time about trade between the U.S. and Japan. State agriculture officials and ag industry groups are pushing the administration to quickly negotiate a trade deal with Japan. Some farmers and ranchers say they're losing market share to foreign competitors benefiting from trade agreements with Tokyo. Several groups and food companies sent a letter to U.S. Trade Representative Bob Lighthizer. It warned that U.S. exporters are, quote, facing collapse of their Japanese market share as these lucrative sales are handed over to their competitors, end quote.
The I-80 Planting Tour, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
Farmers are starting to plant in Iowa, but it's going very slowly. Right now, only 4% is planted for corn. Usually, it's more than double that at 10%. However, there are some things out of farmers' control these days. AgDay's Betsy Gibbon explains as she heads to eastern Iowa for this report in this week's I-80 Planting Tour.
It's an afternoon in the shop for Wilton, Iowa farmer Dave Walton. A start to the season, arriving with lingering burdens from last.
It's time to get started, but it's hard to get excited about putting a crop in the ground when there isn't a whole lot of profit there. So it kind of takes a little bit of the fun out of it.
Iowa farmers are having their share of struggles still from 2018, playing catch up from a late harvest.
Our harvest didn't end until mid-December, which is really late for us.
After storms created problems in the field.
Did you have any stunted beans last fall?
No, we really didn't. It was a late harvest and we were concerned with that, but in this area we didn't have any issues with bean quality.
While Walton did not have quality issues, others did.
Quality issue used to be something where maybe you took a slight dock versus this last year. It wasn't a slight dock, they just didn't take your beans. Now that was a small portion of the overall crop in the United States, but any sort of a quality issue might have just made them leave the beans behind.
The inconvenience from both a late and a financially burdensome harvest continues in 2019. Fieldwork is ongoing.
If we get a break in the weather next week, we can get this crop in the ground in a hurry.
And for Walton, acreage is slightly changing.
With the bean market the way it is and the uncertainty on the horizon, I can't take that chance.
A 20% acreage change to corn he feels is necessary.
The thing that I sit at night and think about, and you get up in the morning and you wonder, when is this thing going to get resolved, and are we going to make up the difference in other parts of the world?
If China just focused in on Brazil and Argentina and we got all the markets from the other nations, we'd actually have a pretty substantial size marketplace to be able to export to. It just doesn't happen that way because of logistics, because of trade, relationships they've got with other countries.
The administration's saying they are close to a deal with China and are down to the final stages of enforcement.
We're sending cabinet members to Beijing. They're sending vice premiers back to Washington. I think that's a signal that we've got decision makers in the room, which leads me to be hopeful that we're getting close.
While the verbiage is not known yet, NAG believes improvements need to be made for a potential deal to be successful.
This isn't just about getting China to buy more soybeans again, right? Which is a really important market for Iowa. We need to see changes in how they behave.
Soon afternoons in the shop will turn to time in the field. For Walton, a long for a trade resolution.
You hear a little bit of positive news, and then 2 or 3 days later they say, well, we're not making any progress.
With an intention to do what's best on the farm.
2 years ago, this is a 240 bushel plus corn yield. So that's the goal.
Reporting in Wilton, Iowa, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
And tomorrow, Betsy will head back into the heartland and into some of the areas hardest hit by flooding. This is some of the video she shared on Facebook. You can see still a lot of water around the area. Betsy talks with a producer along the Missouri River, still trying to get out in his fields. That's coming up tomorrow on AgDay. While many producers fight to get out in their fields, many still have work to do from last season. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen has more in today's crop comments. Cindy.
Well, Clinton, fields have been too wet for farmers to get out and plant soybeans in Indiana, and in some cases, they still have cleanup work to do. Mike Pease shared this photo with us. It was taken in Wells County, Indiana, that's south of Fort Wayne, and you can see soybeans yet to be harvested from last year. Mike says the field is still wet and the beans are laying on the ground in several places. I'll actually be down that way later today. Well, let's take a look at your wind speed forecast, and the bulk of the winds will be kind of in the northern areas and in southern areas, at least through the day today. As you can see, much of that in the upper Midwest and into the northern plains, part of the Northeast, and especially down towards the Gulf Coast states. Overnight, we see a lot of those winds diminishing, but we have a few pockets, especially in the plains. But watch Thursday as we see some stronger winds developing once again in the upper Midwest and into the northern plains. I'll have your national forecast coming up, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Changes are coming to insurance programs for livestock and dairy farmers. USDA's Risk Management Agency says the changes take effect July 1st. Soon ranchers will be able to insure more of their cattle and hogs using livestock risk protection. It shields against drops in market prices. Now coverage will expand to all states. The federal government will cover up to 35% of premiums. That's compared with 13% under prior rules. The updated dairy revenue protection removes the 70% and 75% coverage levels. It also modified the minimum declared butterfat from 3.5 to 2.5 pounds. Now the program insures for unexpected declines in the quarterly revenue from milk sales compared with a guaranteed coverage level. And after 34 years with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, Kendall Frazier has announced he's retiring. Frazier has been the CEO of the organization for the past 4 years. He was instrumental in helping secure the passage of the checkoff referendum. Frazier will leave office on December 31st. Cotton planting is right on pace. When we come back, we'll talk planting and prices over at the Agribusiness Desk. And later, when Congress returns, leaders in Florida are urging the completion of disaster relief in hopes of getting help with the recovery from Hurricane Michael. Why seeing it happen soon matters. More now on the pressures facing soybeans and corn on Trading on Tuesday. Here's an update from the CME.
Hello, and an update on the hog market here. Massive drop in the pig herd in China. Expected to spark big imports, especially in the second half of the year by China. Cumulative U.S. pork export sales for 2019, 631,800 tons. That's up 20% from a year ago. China after booking an additional 23,000 tons last week. The prior week was their record, 77,000. So their purchases have really come on in the last couple of weeks. Total commitments now, 166,000 of that total is going to China. That's 26.3% of the total now going to China of our total commitments on the books.
The latest crop progress report shows 9% of the nation's cotton is now planted. That's right on par with the 5-year average. Texas is about 12% done. Georgia is 6% planted. Well, that's ahead of the average pace. Many southern states are running behind following a spate of spring storms. Craig Van Dyke with Top Third Ag Marketing, our guest at Agribusiness Desk today. Craig, let's talk about something that's a little bit outside our wheelhouse that we discuss all the time, but that's cotton. That market in the middle of planting season as well, kind of an interesting market.
Yeah, we're starting to get rolling along in cotton planting, and based on the major cotton producing areas, when you look at the competition versus different wheat, soybeans, corn, milo, the cotton market is potentially gaining some traction on acreage. Now, the latest USDA report, caught me off guard, as well as the market, obviously, as far as where that acreage number is expected to be. And that's been a nice boost for the cotton market, as well as we've seen decent demand here in the near term, give front month cotton contracts some strength. But when you look at the long-term historical, 75 to 80 cent cotton over the past 7 years has been the upper end of its historical range. India is having problems in cotton production. Okay, India is obviously one of the major competitors as far as cotton goes. Whereas China's cotton reserves stand is debatable. Obviously knowing the exact number is a bit unknown, but we've seen China around the market. Do we have the quality right now that China wants? Probably not. So we need to move out the cotton we have here as we move forward. But if this acreage number is right, this cotton market looks rather friendly, and it's been in a nice uptrend for 2 months. We saw what cotton could do last year, ranging up in the 90-cent area. But right now, when you look at March of 20 contracts, 75 to 78 cent area, to me, is a decent spot to get something going. Yeah. So the cotton market here is another shining light, that we've got in as far as ag commodities go, with a lot of potential, especially if we have the acreage numbers are for real and we have weather problems in cotton moving forward.
Well, and it is interesting how a lot of folks, from what I'm hearing, are saying maybe not soybeans this year. We may go cotton just because of that opportunity.
Exactly.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks so much, Craig. We'll be back with more Ag Day here in just a minute.
For a special report on the grain markets, call toll-free at 877-TT-HEDGE. That's 877-884-3343. Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Cindy Clausen looking at the root zone moisture map. And Cindy, you can, as you told me, really tell where those storm systems have been going.
Yeah, absolutely. You can really kind of pick out where the storm tracks have been, the past couple of blizzards moving across the country. Let's take a look. You can pick out where we've had those blizzard conditions all the way through much of the plains and into the upper Midwest, but we've also had a southern storm track as well that's been moving through southern parts of the U.S. and then kind of moving up into the mid-Atlantic and into the Northeast as well. Where we've noticed drier conditions is right here kind of in between. So parts of Missouri, Kansas, even parts of Texas, although we're going to be making up for that this week with the rain that we've already seen and will continue to see as we head into the next 24 hours. All right, here is our map for today. Still a couple of low pressure systems, one right here in Missouri, cold front stretching down to Texas. Expect more heavy rain there, so that's going to be knocking out any dryness that you have there. Putting this into motion, everything starts to slowly move to the east. May still see a few snowflakes over in New England. We've got the low pressure that's starting to move into the eastern Corn Belt. Heavy rain, showers, thunderstorms into parts of eastern Texas. We also have another front that's coming into the upper Midwest and back all the way into the Pacific Northwest. Not not quite as much moisture with that one, although we will see some showers and some thunderstorms in spots around that. This is going to be the main focus for the real wet weather, is the southern system. It just has more moisture to work with. Heading through the day on Thursday, we really start to see that moisture moving into the Gulf Coast states, into the Tennessee and Ohio Valley as well, and that secondary cold front starts moving into the Corn Belt, and we'll see some much cooler air coming in behind it. Precipitation estimate, yeah, it's been a lot in much of central and northern Texas, over 3 inches already in spots, and when you add on the next 24 hours, we just add more to that and really spread that to the east into the Gulf Coast states and again to the Ohio and Tennessee valleys. Everybody's still on the mild side as we head through the day today. The coolest air is right up here in New England, but as we add into tonight, we're going to start to see some cooler air coming down into behind that cold front in the northern plains. Down into the 40s tonight, that's not too bad for that area, but you'll notice the difference as you head into tomorrow as we start to cool those highs from 60s back down into the 50s and 40s behind that front. Quick look at the jet stream. We've got that trough. That's where that storm system is that's moving across the Gulf Coast states. Notice how we're going to see another trough in the northeast. That's going to bring some cooler temperatures and kind of a secondary wave moving through early next week. We'll keep an eye on what happens in the northwest for next week. We'll have some cooler temperatures coming in there. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Darrington, Washington, lots of sunshine for you today with a high of 62 degrees. Donovan, Missouri, showers and thunderstorms with a high of 73. And Dawson, Georgia, mostly sunny with a high of 83.
The National Hurricane Center upgrading last year's Hurricane Michael to a Category 5 storm this week. The intensity and the damage is still visible across the Sunshine State, which is why ag leaders in Florida are calling on Washington to finish a disaster assistance package. This was a scene during the storm as winds roared ashore last fall. The results were devastating. Take a look at these aerials and video released by the Florida Department of Agriculture. Hundreds of thousands of downed trees lying on the ground, now fuel for wildfires. Already fires breaking out, forcing evacuations and burning hundreds of acres. Florida Commissioner of Agriculture Nikki Fried says it has become America's forgotten disaster.
The damage to these communities in the part of the state that we have dealt with is unprecedented. They need our help every day for the recovery efforts, and I'm committed to seeing this through. Clearing these lands of fallen timber as soon as possible must be a high priority.
Because you got to see it. We try to tell people about it, especially in Tallahassee, and you can't. They can't possibly fathom what we're all going through.
State forest leaders say they need to put in more than 4,000 miles of roads and fire lines in order to prevent a major fire issue. Congress continues to work on a disaster aid package, but has faced delays over funding for Puerto Rico. So what are the best grocery stores in the country? We'll see if yours made the list. Plus, one plant-based meat company plans to grow. That's next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
A maker of vegan chicken and beef substitutes wants to raise as much as $184 million in its initial public offering. Beyond Meat plans to sell 8.75 million shares. They would cost from $19 to $21 each. The company is just one of several makers of plant-based meat or lab-grown meats. Its investors include Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates and actor Leonardo DiCaprio. Now, Tyson Foods is also accelerating development of its own alternative protein products, and it's a backer of Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat currently sells products in grocery stores such as Kroger and Whole Foods, as well as several restaurants. Consumer Reports is out with its rankings of the best grocery stores in the country. Take a look at the list. These stores receive the highest mark, which is excellent for producer quality. They are Central Market, Wegmans, Heinen's, Gelson's, New Seasons Market, Lund's and Byerly's, and Fresh Time Farmers Market. The organization rated 96 retailers based on a survey of more than 75,000 members. Coming up, not your typical traffic stop. A donkey stuck in Chicago traffic and one confused deputy. Next. If you've ever had livestock, you know once in a while those critters can get out. Well, take a look at this scene on a busy Chicago interstate.
There's a donkey in the middle of I-90. Come here. Come here, sweetie. You want to call the state or somebody? Somebody lost their donkey, County. I am in the middle of the expressway with a donkey.
Far from a routine traffic stop when a sheriff's officer spotted a donkey meandering along I-90 near Chicago. The Cook County officer's body cam capturing the entire event. She asked a driver to stand with the donkey while she could figure out what to do.
Do me a favor, pull your car over and stand with the donkey so I can figure out what I'm going to do with it.
The officer also asking the donkey where it was from. It turns out the animal's name is Dusty. It was eventually returned to its owner. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.